Hello Mila, hello Jack. Hello everybody else who's watching, and welcome to Storytime with Grandad. Today's book is from Peasy People, and it is Roger Raw. You've probably heard the saying, as quiet as a mouse, haven't you? Well, this story is about someone who is even quieter than a mouse. Roger Raw, the Easy Peasy Lion. Roger lived in Softly Cottage on Easy Peasy Island, in the middle of the terrific ocean. Now, Roger wasn't like an ordinary lion. He looked like an ordinary lion, and he had an ordinary lion's shaggy mane, and ordinary long whiskers, and an ordinary elegant tail. But what Roger didn't have was an ordinary lion's great big booming voice. Roger only had a little voice. A tiny little squeaky voice. Yes, really. All his life, Roger had dreamed of being fierce. He desperately wanted to be fierce, with a deep, booming voice. He wanted to frighten people and make them jump. The other morning, Roger Raw decided to go for a walk. I'm going to frighten the first person I meet, he said to himself. As he reached Curly Corner, he heard someone coming, so he hid behind a hedge and waited. And who should come round the corner but Susie Squawk, the Easy Peasy Island parrot. She passed by Roger's hiding place. Roger sneaked out and tiptoed up behind her. He took a deep breath and opened his mouth and let out an ever so tiny, boo, he squeaked. Susie wasn't in the least bit frightened. Who would be? It was such a tiny little voice, Susie laughed a squawky sort of a laugh, and left Roger feeling rather glum. You are silly, she said. Molly Moo, the Easy Peasy cow, was out for her afternoon stroll. As she came round Curly Corner, Roger Raw crept out from behind the hedge. He took a deep breath and opened his mouth, and out came an even smaller, tinier noise than before. Oh, boo, he squeaked. Boo to you too, said Molly Moo with a laugh. Roger shivered, his chin trembled, and his knees knocked. Because, do you know what? Molly Moo had frightened Roger Raw. How ridiculous. Roger felt very silly. He left Molly Moo giggling and set off down Long Lane. In the distance, he saw Grandma Bar on the way to the shops in Littletown. I must be able to frighten old Grandma Bar, Roger murmured to himself, hopefully. So he tiptoed very quietly up behind Grandma Bar. He took a deep breath, opened his mouth, and, boo, he said in the tiniest squeak you ever heard. Grandma Bar carried on walking. She hadn't even heard Roger's tiny boo. Someone started laughing. It was Gary Grizzle. Yes, Gary Grizzle, the Easy Peasy Island bear, who hardly ever smiled, was laughing. You're hopeless, he said to Roger. Gary Grizzle had been watching Roger Raw trying to frighten people. I have an idea, said Gary. Oh, said Roger. Yes, said Gary, a brilliant idea. He whispered in Roger's ear. Here comes Warren Waffle. Take a deep breath and have another go. It's easy peasy. So Roger sneaked quietly up behind Warren. But what he didn't know was that Gary had sneaked up behind him. Even more quietly, Roger took a breath. But what he didn't know was that behind him, Gary had taken an even deeper breath. Roger opened his mouth wide, but what he didn't know was that Gary had opened his mouth even wider. At the same time as Roger let out his tiny little boo, Gary let out the most enormous, gigantic boo you've ever heard. Warren shook all over. His teeth chattered, his chin quivered, and his knees knocked. He was so frightened he ran away. "There," said Gary. "I knew you could frighten someone if you really tried." Gary looked around. "Roger," he called. "Roger, where are you?" Roger Raw, the easy peasy lion, had disappeared. Up a tree. You see, Gary's enormous gigantic boo had frightened him even more than it had frightened Warren. "Oh, Roger, what a daft lion you are." Boo. The end. Goodbye, Mila. Goodbye, Jack. I'll see you soon. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.